A group of volunteers run a temporary shelter to take care of animals abandoned during the war in Ukraine.
Some of the dogs were left by their owners and some pets were not allowed to be evacuated. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines. Metro Manila and majority of the country will remain under COVID-19 Alert Level 1 from June 16 until June 30, as Malacanang appeals for public's adherence to standard health protocol. The Philippines has won a seat in the United Nations Commission on the Limits of Continental Shelf, a first time for an archipelagic country to serve in the commission. The Biden administration announces an additional $1 billion more in arms assistance to Ukraine in its fight against Russia. The World Health Organization says Europe remains the epicenter of the global monkeypox outbreak, which poses a real risk. And President Rodrigo Duterte names multi-awarded actress Nora Honor and 7 others as national artists. The Duterte administration appeals for public strict compliance to standard health protocols to avoid COVID-19 infections, as Metro Manila remains under Alert Level 1 from June 16 until June 30. Vic Somintak reports.
84 areas, including those in Metro Manila, will remain under Alert Level 1 from June 16 until June 30. Presidential spokesman Martin Andarar says Metro Manila remains under the lowest level COVID-19 risk classification as approved by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Infectious Diseases, or IATF. 37 other areas are classified under Alert Level 2 for the same period. With this regard, Malacanang has appealed to the public to strictly observe the standard health protocols. The government cautioned the public not to be complacent and continue practicing mas hugas iwas. Andarar says the IATF agreed Metro Manila to stay on Alert Level 1 amid a slight increase in COVID-19 infections. He says the decision was based on the recommendations of health experts from the Department of Health, since Metro Manila is still categorized as low risk and the situation is still manageable. Andarar says the government will work hard to control COVID-19 infections until the end of President Duterte's term on June 30. Vic Somintak reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Octa Research Group has urged the government to defer the planned return of in-person classes in schools nationwide. Octa Research Fellow Dr. Guido David made the call as the country logs more cases of COVID-19 in the past week. He suggests to delay the return of face-to-face classes even for 1 month only to avoid students from contracting the virus by going outside their homes. Earlier, the Department of Health says 11 areas in the National Capital Region registered an increase in COVID-19 infections in the past week. Until June 13, the DOH says areas that logs an increase in COVID-19 cases in the past 2 weeks include Las Piñas, Makati, Mandaluyong, Marikina, Manila, Muntinlupa, Parañaque, Pasig, Quezon City, San Juan, and Valenzuela. But despite increase in infections, the DOH says the average daily attack rate, or ADAR, remains low at 1 to 3 cases for every 100,000 population.
The Department of Health has recommended the mandatory wearing of face masks in public places until the end of 2022. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire says wearing of face masks is the best way to protect yourself not only with COVID-19 but also in other respiratory infections, including monkeypox. Vergeire clarified that face masks can only be taken off when eating or exercising, or if one is alone or far from other people. The wearing of face masks became controversial after Cebu provincial government issues a local executive order saying that wearing of face masks is optional in the province.
The Department of Interior and Local Government, or DILG, is in consultation with its legal team for possible legal action against Cebu Governor Gwendolyn Garcia, who issues an executive order making wearing a face mask optional in the province. DILG Secretary Eduardo Año says he will give Garcia the chance to review and revise her directive. Mar Gabriel reports.
Interior and Local Government Secretary Eduardo Año has given the local government of Cebu a chance to revise or amend the local executive order issued by Governor Gwendolyn Garcia, ordering face mask wearing in public as optional. Año says the local order clearly violates the Executive Order number 151 issued by President Rodrigo Duterte that mandates the public to wear face masks.
We'll be giving the Cebu provincial government, the governor and the councilors to amend, rectify, adjust their ordinance and EO to be consistent with the EO 151 and the guidelines in the implementation of the alert level system, which is part of EO 151. Maybe over the weekend, we will give them a chance to rectify. After the weekend, then we will do whatever is necessary.
The DILG is in consultation with its legal team to study what charges may be filed against the officials of Cebu, headed by Governor Garcia.
The national government does not recognize the EO and the ordinance. Sabi nga ni Secretary Guevara, the term is ultra vires. They do not have, or it's beyond their powers to supersede, to counter, to contradict a national statute, which is including the EO of the President. Kung meron mga sumalungat dyan at sumuway, ay huwag niyo sundin yan kasi mapapahamak ang inyong buhay dyan at baka yan pa ang maging sanhi kung babalik ang COVID surges at maapekto at makasakit tayo. Malinaw naman ang sinabi ng ating Pangulo, ipatutupad pa rin ang mandato ng pagsusuot ng face mask.
The Secretary also responded to Garcia's comment that the administration has only 2 weeks left before turning over the governance to the new administration. Año says, based on Executive Order 1218, the state of calamity and state of public health emergency in the country is effective until September 2022.
Now, it is still the time of President Duterte. Kaya ako sa tingin ko, kami rin ang dapat mag-take actions dito. Now, hindi naman ibig sabihin na 2 linggo na lang yan ay hindi na natin dapat sundin yun. Hindi naman kami ang nagpapatupad dito. Ito ay batas na para sa lahat. At hindi rin naman sinasabi na ay binoto ako ng 1-point-something Filipinos in Cebu, yun ang masusunod. Hindi rin naman yun yung basehan kasi walang logic to. Even if you ask siguro the 1.2 millions, hindi yan lahat ay papayag na tanggalin yung mandatory wearing of mask.
Mar Gabriel, reporting for Mar Gabriel for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
House Majority Leader Martin Romualdez says that the public can expect a progressive and brighter future under the incoming administration of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. He also promised the new leadership in House of Representatives to strive for inclusive growth for the benefit of the people. Eden Santos has the story.
Incoming House Speaker and later Representative Martin Romualdez is confident of the bright future ahead for the Filipinos with the assumption to office of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Romualdez's optimism is amid a high inflation, large budget deficit, and a dark global economic outlook awaiting the incoming administration.
But the election of dynamic and compassionate leaders at the highest levels of government gives us hope for a brighter future. For the first time since 1986, we have elected a majority president in the person of Ferdinand Bongbong Romualdez Marcos Jr. The overwhelming mandate that he received from the Filipino voters will surely help him steer the nation in the direction that we all desire. One that is anchored on his message of unity and his vision of Filipino nationhood.
As the incoming Speaker, Romualdez promised to strive for inclusive growth for the benefit of the people, an aspiration which he himself admits a big challenge for the 19th Congress.
Inclusive growth. Dapat pakinabangan ng lahat ang biyaya ng pag-unlad. That is why we aim for in Tacloban and even in the whole of the Eastern Visayas, in the next 3 years, our district, our province, and our region that will lead the nation in a new era of progress and development.
Romualdez and other officials from Leyte and Tacloban are happy that the unity tandem of Marcos Jr. and Vice President-elect Sara Duterte won in the May 9 elections. Duterte herself officiated the oath-taking of the elected officials in the province. Marcos Jr. and Duterte addressed Romualdez as the next Speaker of the House and is expected to be an ally in providing services to the people. The two thanked Romualdez for his contributions and sacrifices during the campaign.
I would just like to add my congratulations to the officers and officials who are taking their oath today. Namely, of course, the Honorable Ferdinand Martin Gomez Romualdez, who is taking his oath as Congressman of the 1st District and is the incoming Speaker of the House of Representatives. I look forward to working with you all very, very closely as I say to all of our number is that the problems that we are facing now and post-pandemic are going to be serious challenges. And that is why I ask all of you for your help in making the country better and making the lives of our people better.
Second is I'd like to personally publicly thank Congressman Martin Romualdez for taking me in Lakas CMD and accepting the challenge to be my my 2 campaign managers during the last election. It was not without irritations and challenges, but you did very well. $32.2 million votes. You did it all.
I have been fortunate to have seen up close the dynamics between the President-elect Bongbong Marcos and the Vice President-elect Inday Sara Duterte. Their relationship is one of mutual respect and one guided by the duty to serve the Filipino. This energetic tandem, I am sure, will work hand in hand to help improve the living conditions of our people.
Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines has won a seat in the Asia-Pacific Group, or APG, of the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf, or CLCS, for 2023 to 2028 term at elections held during the 32nd meeting of the state's parties to UNCLOS, in a tweet posted by Philippine mission to the UN. It's said that the country competed with 8 other candidates under the APG and successfully reached the required majority of votes, with 113 votes from a total of 164 states parties present and voting after 4 tough rounds of voting. Filipino ocean governance expert Efren Carandang, who currently serves as the Deputy Administrator of the National Mapping and Resource Information Authority, has been hailed by the permanent mission as one of the country's most eminently qualified technical experts for the CLCS with quality management skills. The Philippine mission to the UN also tweeted that this is the first time that the Philippines, an archipelagic state, will serve in the commission, adding that the election promotes the principle of rotation, inclusion, and representation among UNCLOS states. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. thanked China for their vote. He also said that though the Philippines and China have differences, the two countries are patriots, each of respective causes, and have a deep respect and genuine affection for each other. Locsin Jr. also thanked the other countries who voted for the Philippines. The CLCS is the unit tasked to examine and make recommendations on the coastal states' submissions for extended continental shelves.
President Rodrigo Duterte has bestowed Filipina actress Nora Honor and 7 other personalities the National Artist Award in a ceremony in Malacanang Palace. Cez Alvarez reports.
Despite earlier delays, multi-awarded actress and Philippine movie superstar Nora Honor finally receives recognition as national artist. Aside from Honor, President Duterte bestowed the same award to 7 others, including award-winning playwright Ricardo Lee, film director Marilu Diaz-Abaya, actor-director Tony Mabesa, choreographer Agnes Luxin, who receives the award as National Artist for Dance, soprano singer Fides Cuyugan Asensio, National Artist for Music, Kateria Salvacion Lim Higgins, National Artist for Fashion Design, and Jimeno Abad, who receives the recognition as National Artist for Literature. The award is given to the new sets of national artists as issued by Presidential Proclamation 3090, signed by President Duterte, as recommended by the National Commission for Culture and Arts and the Film Development Council of the Philippines. The awardees receive a gold-plated medallion minted by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, with citation. For living national artists also received minimum cash award worth 200,000 pesos with a monthly pension of 10,000 pesos, life insurance, state funeral, and VIP treatment to state functions, including commemoration rights and other cultural presentations. The new set of awardees is the second batch of artists recognized by the Duterte administration. The National Artist Award was created by former President Ferdinand Marcos through Presidential Proclamation 1001 on April 27, 1972. Cez Alvarez, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, Lugan Stadium destroyed by Ukrainian rockets. China pledges support for Russia. And devastating evidence reveals a Proud Boys plan to storm buildings January 6. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will come back.
Good news sa lahat ng mahilig magluto at kumain.
May bago at katakam-takam na cooking show dito lamang sa Net25. Ako si Patty Daza.
Ako naman si Sandy Daza.
Samahan niyo kaming magpinsan dito sa Lutong Daza.
Bukod sa masarap at abot kaya na recipes, masarap ang kwentuhan at halakhakan dito.
At syempre, laging may special celebrity guest. Kainan na! Kita-kits!
Lutong Daza
sa Net25.
Southeast Asia Cup o MSC 2022. Sino ang magwawagi at sino ang uuwing talunan? Which team will fly over the cloud at mababansagan Kings of Sea? Ang MSC 2022 Arena ay tatanghal sa Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia from June 11 until June 19. Follow #SupremeC for more updates. Mobile Legends Bang Bang, where heroes make history.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. $1 billion more in arms assistance will be given by the United States to Ukraine in its fight against Russia. Arlene Ocampo reports.
The United States Department of Defense, or DoD, announces $1 billion in additional security assistance for Ukraine. The arms package includes an authorization of a presidential drawdown of security assistance valued at up to $350 million, as well as $650 million in Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, or the USAI funds. The PDA authorization is the 12th drawdown of equipment from DoD inventories for Ukraine since August 2021. Under USAI, the DoD will provide Ukraine with near-term priority capabilities to defend against Russia. The United States has now committed approximately $6.3 billion in security assistance to Ukraine since the beginning of the Biden administration. This includes approximately $5.6 billion since the beginning of Russia's invasion on February 24. Since 2014, the United States has committed more than $8.3 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. Arlene Ocampo, Washington, D.C., Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Continued shelling of Ukrainian forces over Lugansk and Donetsk caused civilian deaths and destruction of infrastructure. Igor Zhadanov of RT News visits a football stadium totally damaged by Ukrainian rockets. Let's watch this.
The situation for Ukrainian troops here in the Lugansk People's Republic is dire. This is something that all sides of the conflict seem to agree on, Kiev, Moscow and the international community. And the worse, the more hopeless it gets for the Ukrainians here, the more aggressive and deadly they become against civilians, against ordinary population of the Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republic. The city of Donetsk itself has recently endured a shelling it hasn't seen in years. Right now, I walk amongst the ruins of what used to be a football stadium, now obliterated by Ukraine's Grad rockets, and dead bodies have only just yet been extracted from under the rubble. And Kiev essentially is doing its best trying to convince the Western audience that they need foreign-supplied weapons, they need foreign-supplied artillery. But given Kiev's vengefulness, given Kiev's desire and eagerness to take its anger out on ordinary civilians, the longer the West will keep feeding this addiction of Kiev to foreign-supplied weapons, the longer this agony will go on. Amiga Zhdana reporting from the Lugansk People's Republic, RT.
Addressing both chambers of the Czech parliament, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky recalls the 1968 Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia and urges Europe to help Ukraine more.
Ще один вимір. Зараз, коли український народ воює за свободу проти жорсткого російського вторгнення, ми можемо сказати, що саме з такими словами ми, українці, звертаємось до усіх народів Європи, до усіх народів демократичного світу. Ми з вами, будьте з нами. Той, хто хоче захопити все, ніколи не зупиниться, взявши тільки частину. І я закликаю вас і надалі разом з нами, не зупиняючись ні на мить, переконувати у цій простій істині всіх, хто досі не наважився чітко брати сторону у цьому протистоянні, яке триває вже 112-й день.
Chinese President Xi Jinping told his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in a phone call that Beijing will keep backing Moscow on issues of sovereignty and security. Xi, as quoted by Chinese state media outlet CCTV, said China is willing to continue to offer mutual support to Russia on issues concerning our core interests, such as sovereignty, security, and intensify strategic coordination between the two countries, and strengthen communication and coordination in major international and regional organizations such as the United Nations, BRICS, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In the phone call, which fell on Xi's 69th birthday, the two leaders noted that relations between Russia and China have reached an unprecedentedly high level and are constantly improving, the Kremlin press service said. CCTV reported that Putin stressed that Moscow opposes any external forces' attempts to interfere in China's internal affairs, such as the situations in Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Touching on the conflict in Ukraine, Xi noted that Beijing has always made independent judgments. He also reportedly called on all parties to the conflict to find a peaceful resolution, with the Chinese leadership ready to play a constructive role in the process. It was a second phone call between Putin and Xi since Russia launched its offensive against Ukraine on February 24. Unlike the several other nations, China has not imposed any sanctions on Russia over its military operation in Ukraine. China also abstained from voting on a UN Security Council resolution condemning the Kremlin's actions.
U.S.-led coalition forces captured a senior Islamic State leader in an operation conducted in Syria, according to officials. The official, who was not named, is an experienced bomb maker and facilitator and one of IS's top leaders in Syria, the coalition said in a statement from Operation Inherent Resolved. The mission was meticulously planned to minimize the risk of collateral damage or civilian harm. The operation was successful. No civilians were harmed, nor were there injuries to coalition forces or damage to coalition aircraft or assets, according to the statement. In March 2019, the U.S. declared the ISIS in Syria had been defeated, but coalition forces have carried on to hunt leaders of the organization who have gone into hiding into desert hideouts.
U.S. President Joe Biden is criticized over a scheduled meeting with Saudi Arabia Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman next month. Mia Villa reports.
Biden faces criticism over planned meeting with Saudi Crown Prince. The United States government has been accused of abandoning its commitment to human rights after announcing that President Joe Biden will meet Saudi Arabia Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman next month. It can be recalled that the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi at the hands of Saudi agents in Turkey 4 years ago caused global outrage. During the unveiling of Jamal Khashoggi Way in Washington, where the Saudi embassy is located, Nobel Prize winner Tawakkol Karman said that Biden is acting shamefully. Senate Majority Whip Illinois Senator Dick Durbin and other Democrats expressed concern over the planned meeting. Durbin said he had tried to convince Biden to cancel the trip and that he understands why Biden decided to take part in the visit. This is Mia Villa reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The full document titled 1776 Returns, allegedly given to Proud Boys chairman Henry Enrique Tarrio prior to the January 6 insurrection, gives detailed plans to occupy more than half a dozen buildings surrounding the U.S. Capitol and describes tactics to be used by occupiers as they storm the Winter Palace. The document, attached as an exhibit in a court filing by Tarrio's co-defendant Zachary Rell, was described by Patrick Cotter, a former federal prosecutor, as an absolutely devastating piece of evidence. Tarrio, Rell, and 3 other members of the Proud Boys are facing multiple felony counts due to U.S. Capitol riot. Rell's attorneys contend that the 1776 document was not a plan to attack the Capitol, and in any event, Tarrio did not share or discuss the document with Rell or the other defendants. The attached exhibit consists of 9 pages, includes typos and an unfinished section. 1776 Returns starts with the words, "Read directions carefully," and explains a plan of attack on the nation's capital, with the stated purpose being to fill the buildings with patriots and communicate our demands. The document also states we need as many people as possible inside these buildings. The buildings targeted include 6 office buildings of the House and Senate, as well as the Capitol campus, which is the location of the Supreme Court. The document describes a plan to identify a lead and second to coordinate rushing each building and a hype man to stimulate a crowd and a minimum of 50 people to storm each building. It also lists steps to take to create chaos, including pulling fire alarms or other actions to ensure there is an entry point for the masses to rush the building. It proposes using cars or semi-trucks to block surrounding intersections so as to stop access to any law enforcement vehicle. No author is identified in the document. It is also undated. Its plans deviate significantly from the events that happened in January 6 because the Capitol building, which was the only building occupied by protesters, is not listed in the document's list of targeted buildings. Cotter said it is irrelevant because either way, the document lays out a plan to commit multiple crimes. However, law professor Stephen Salzberg argued that he is not so sure the document is damning. Now, Salzberg said the 1776 Returns is a strong evidence that there was a conspiracy to commit certain crimes on January 6, just not necessarily the crimes the Proud Boys are charged with. The committee seeks to tie former President Donald Trump to the offenses involving the Proud Boys.
The results were...
Both Cotter and Salzberg said crucial questions remaining are who authored the document and who it was distributed to.
New York's Rikers Island has long had a reputation for unsanitary conditions and violence. But today, it is facing arguably its most intense scrutiny ever, following 20 deaths at the jail in the past 18 months. Lizandre Cadu's son, Stefan, passed away there from meningitis. Cadu says her son died because of an inhumane system.
When they called him a casualty, he didn't die at war.
My son died because of inhumane system. My son died 24 years old from meningitis because of an inhumane system.
The boards and stuff they had in front of the building for.
In May, a local court found the Department of Correction, or DOC, in contempt for denying detainees access to medical care. Separately, a federal judge decided not to strip control of the prison from the city, but ordered officials to come up with a plan to fix the crisis at the sprawling complex. For Kadu, any reforms are too late. She says her son was a healthy young man in December 2019 when he entered Rikers. He had been arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit murder and was awaiting trial. After a few months, Stefan was transferred to a nearby overflow facility. Kadu says Stefan began suffering seizures in July of 2021. She blames a pepper spray that guards use on inmates to restore order called the cell buster. Stefan spent a few days in hospital before being returned to his cell. On September 22, an inmate found Stefan bleeding from the mouth. He was hospitalized and died that day.
When he went in here, he had no medical.
Up next, FDA panel recommends COVID-19 vaccine shots for youngest kids. Pyongyang expands work at nuclear test site to second tunnel, according to CSIS. And US FED hikes key interest rates by 0.75% in fight against surging inflation. Find out more about these stories when we return here on Mata ng Agila International.
A sweet little bunny, Mary. A smart little bunny, Mary. A cute little bunny, Mary. It always feels sunny with Mary.
Sundays at 10 a.m. dito lang sa Net 25. Saan mang panig ng mundo, ihanda na ang shopping list nyo dahil narito na ang online shopping show kung saan ang hanap nyo, meron dito. Narito na ang Shopping All the Way with Jojo A. Eat na hit? We have it! May sayawan, tawanan, pati naiyakan. Pati pets nyo mag-i-enjoy dito. But wait, there's more. Dahil pati celebrity sellers, makikipag-online selling din. At hindi lang yan, dahil may chance kayong makabili ng collectible items mula sa inyong mga paboritong artista. Kaya what are you waiting for? Add to cart na! Shopping All the Way with Jojo A. Opening soon sa Net 25.
Abangan ang mga istorya ng pagbangon sa Season 2 ng Lingap Stories tuwing Linggo, alas 5 ng hapon sa Net 25.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. The World Health Organization, or WHO, says Europe remains the epicenter of the global monkeypox outbreak, which poses a real risk. More than 1,500 cases have been reported in the region. The UN Health announced earlier that it would hold an emergency meeting next week to determine whether to classify the outbreak as a public health emergency of international concern.
The magnitude of this outbreak poses a real risk. The longer the virus circulates, the more it will extend its reach, and the stronger the disease's foothold will get in non-endemic countries.
WHO's European region comprises 53 countries, including several in Central Asia. Now, until the past few months, monkeypox had generally been confined to Western and Central Africa. Kluge says that the majority of cases reported in Europe have been among men who have sex with men, but also warned against stigmatization. He stresses that the monkeypox virus is not in itself attached to any specific group. The regional director also warns that the risk was increasing as summer had arrived with tourism, various events, music festivals, and other mass gatherings planned across the region.
U.S. health authorities are preparing to put COVID-19 vaccine shots into the arms of children under the age of 5. Our U.S. correspondent Anna Cui has the details.
America's youngest children are now eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. This after the U.S. Food and Drug Administration panel recommends COVID-19 vaccines for children under 5 years old and as young as 6 months old. The U.S. Health Agency announces that a group of experts convened and unanimously made the recommendation Wednesday. Both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines were recommended by the panel. The FDA is expected to soon act on the panel's recommendation. The matter will then go to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for a final say. The 5 years old and under age group is the final age group awaiting immunization in most countries. According to senior FDA scientist Peter Marks, the United States has recorded 480 COVID deaths in the 0 to 4 age group in the pandemic, far higher than even a bad flu. White House officials last week said the rollout of 10 million shots at pharmacies and doctors' offices could begin as soon as June 21. Anna Cui, Las Vegas, Nevada, Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
America's top COVID-19 advisor has tested positive for the virus. The National Institutes of Health says that Anthony Fauci had a positive rapid antigen test for COVID-19 Wednesday. The NIH said he is currently experiencing mild symptoms. The 81-year-old scientist is fully vaccinated and double boosted. According to health authorities, Fauci, the chief medical advisor to the U.S. president, has not been in recent close contact with President Joe Biden. Fauci became the face of America's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He is working from home while he recovers.
As the COVID lockdown eases in Shanghai, residents say things are getting better by the day. Slow, but definitely better. Student Wu Ji says he was locked down at school for 15 days. He says it was tragic. Now he looks forward to things getting back to how they used to be.
常态化的话就应该比较规划了吧，然后就是反正以后应该会实现应该是全面的常态化感觉，然后这样的话，然后可以自行的去嘛，然后没有核酸码反正就去不了一些地方，然后这样也可以让一些人就是自觉的去做核酸嘛。 然后实现一下这个管理吗？
Resident Miss Cow says during COVID, people could not go out when they want, nor cook what they want. She says she felt oppressed. Now times are much better.
还行吧，总比封的时候强呢。出去自己隔2年自己就小区不做，自己出去做去。做完之后去哪儿也放心。 也可以都去，你要不做，你哪儿也去不了。觉得还可以，这还可 OK 的。
Fitness instructor Mr. Wang says patience is key.
整体来说，还是一步慢慢的去往这个常态化的一个生活去慢慢的去这个递进嘛，因为不可能一下子就解封嘛。反正总的来说还是越来越好的一个状态。 对，虽然这个节奏有点慢，但是总归慢慢等吧。
3 new exemptions that will allow the United States government to protect its Afghan allies have been created. The U.S. says these exemptions will alleviate certain obstacles to immigration benefits for Afghans who have been determined to not pose a risk to national security or public safety. EJ Gonzalez reports.
Eligible Afghans who have supported and worked with the United States in Afghanistan can qualify for protection and other immigration benefits here in the country. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security and Department of State have created 3 new exemptions for vulnerable Afghan allies. These exemptions can be applied on a case-by-case basis to ensure individuals who would otherwise be eligible for the benefit or protection they are seeking are not automatically denied. Individuals would only be exempted if they have undergone rigorous screening and vetting and are individually determined to not pose a risk to national security or public safety. Secretaries of State and Homeland Security say these exemptions, exercised 30 times previously, ensure deserving individuals are not inadvertently subject to terrorism-related bars to admission and are eligible for protection in the United States. Now, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro N. Mayorkas says doctors, teachers, engineers, and other Afghans, including those who bravely and loyally supported U.S. forces on the ground in Afghanistan, at great risk to their safety, should not be denied humanitarian protection and other immigration benefits due to their inescapable proximity to war or their work as civil servants. The new exemptions may apply to Afghans who supported U.S. military interests, individuals employed as civil servants in Afghanistan at any time from September 27, 1996 to December 22, 2001, or after August 15, 2021, and individuals who provided insignificant or certain limited material to a designated terrorist organization. Edward J. Gonzalez, Washington, D.C., Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Pyongyang appears to be intensifying work at its nuclear test site to include a second tunnel, a U.S.-based think tank said, as South Korean and U.S. officials say North Korea might conduct a nuclear test any day. The Center for Strategic and International Studies said in a report, preparation work at the Pyongyang nuclear test facility's tunnel number 3 was apparently complete and ready for a possible nuclear test. The report also cited a commercial satellite imagery. From 2006 to 2017, Pyongyang conducted 6 underground nuclear tests at the site. But the research group claimed that for the first time, analysts noticed a new construction activity at the facility's tunnel number 4, strongly suggesting an effort to re-enable it for potential future testing. Outside tunnel number 3, images showed a retaining wall and some minor landscaping with small trees or bushes, likely in anticipation of a visit by senior officials, the think tank said. The 2 tunnels were never previously used for nuclear testing, and their entrances were demolished in 2018 when Pyongyang declared a self-imposed moratorium on testing nuclear weapons and its intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. However, leader Kim Jong-un stressed he is no longer bound by that moratorium because of a lack of reciprocal steps by the U.S. during denuclearization talks, and since then, they resumed testing ICBMs. South Korea's Defense Ministry spokesman, when notified about the report, said it was closely monitoring development on Kim's nuclear activity together with U.S. intelligence. Americans are bracing themselves as they are facing the biggest internet rate hike in 28 years, Ken Cruz reports.
In an all-out battle to drive down surging inflation, the U.S. Federal Reserve has announced its biggest interest rate hike since 1994. It also says it is prepared to do so again next month. The rate hike is considered the most aggressive interest rate increase in nearly 3 decades. The benchmark borrowing rate has now been raised by 0.75 percentage points, making it the first 75 basis point increase since November 1994. The unusually large rate hike is announced as the FED comes under pressure to curb rising gas and food prices. Millions of Americans are struggling with gas prices hovering above $5 a gallon. Households are feeling the hurt from rising costs of food and other supplies, while inflation soars. Approval rating of U.S. President Joe Biden plummets. Many fear a recession is just around the corner. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says the move to increase the interest rate is not about reducing nor inducing a recession. Ken Cruz, Washington, D.C., Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, hot weather warning issued as maps show dark red heat wave in the UK. Veterinarians and biologists care for an orphaned manatee in Colombia. And a Riverdale actor planned to kill Canadian PM Trudeau. Find out why when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Araw-araw may bagong kaalaman. Dahil sa Tony Knows, Everybody Knows! Your Kuya Tony Petgaba na hindi naubusan ng tips. Siyempre, from DIY to life hacks, sagot ko na yan. Saan ka pa? Let's all play together. Let's have fun together. Tara na, sumali at makigulo sa aming kada challenge. Sa kada umaga, kompleto na ang inyong umaga.
Your kids to Net25's animated shows.
Miffy, a sweet little bunny. Miffy, a smart little bunny. Miffy, a cute little bunny. Miffy, it always feels sunny. With Miffy.
Miffy's Adventures Big and Small, Sundays at 10 a.m. back to back with
Rescue Bots, Sundays at 10:30 a.m. Only on Net25.
Panalo tayo pag together, wala talo pag together. Let's net together sa Net25.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. A dangerous blast of African heat hours has prompted the government to warn the elderly and vulnerable to be alert and ready. Ryan Florentino files this report.
Weather forecasting maps have turned dark red ahead of temperatures possibly rising to levels not seen for more than a century. Thermometers will rocket to 35 degrees Celsius in part of the UK within the upcoming days as the nation braces for possibly the hottest June on record. Temperatures this week will hit the required threshold to be classed as a heat wave, but must persist for 3 days to become official. The government has, however, issued a Level 2 Alerts and Readiness Heat Health Alert across southern Britain. Dr. Agostinho Sosa, head of Extreme Events and Health Protection at the UK Health Security Agency, said, during periods of hot weather, it is especially important to keep checking on those who are most vulnerable, such as older people and those with heart or lung conditions. Temperatures will rise day to day, reaching a climax on Friday, with parts of the country baking into the weekend. Scotland and northern Britain are also now fried in freakish heat, although showers will bring some relief. Hot weather will arrive in the form of a plume of air sweeping through the continent of Africa and the desert, through France and into the UK. However, the heat wave will be brief and will give way to cooler winds from the north at the weekend. Reporting from the United Kingdom, I'm Ryan Florentino, reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A group of volunteers run a temporary shelter to take care of animals abandoned during the war in Ukraine. Despite great lengths to save them, animals across the country who have suffered alongside humans since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24. Footage of Ukrainian civilians evacuating their devastated homes with their beloved dogs and cats in their arms went viral at the start of the conflict. But like people who stayed behind, animals have been killed or wounded by Russian shelling. Many have lost their homes or owners. Other pets have been lucky. Rescued by civilians or soldiers and brought to shelters like Natalia Mazur's to be fed and cared for, they have a chance for a new life and potentially new owners.
То силами городских служб и волонтеров было решено организовать вот такой временный приют для содержания животных и сразу, чтобы можно было находить семью.
Just a few months ago in September, Tasajerito, the manatee, was found lost in a Colombian swamp. He was just 3 days old and separated from his mother. 9 months later, the baby sea cow weighs as much as an adult woman and is bottle fed around the clock by the doting aquarium staff. Angela Davila, a veterinarian at the Rodadero Aquarium in Santa Marta in northern Colombia, near where Tasajerito was found, says though much stronger now, his prognosis is still touch and go. Rescued by fishermen, Tasajerito was brought to the aquarium with little hope of survival. A search for his mother proved fruitless. Now safely and ensconced in a dedicated pool at the aquarium, he was clung to life, increasing his consumption of a special vitamin-boosted milk formula six-fold in a few months. Today, he measures over 1.5 meters or 4.9 feet in length and weighs 53 kilograms or 117 pounds. Rodadero marine biologist Juliet Prieto says he is still a newborn. She notes that manatees are raised by their mothers for 5 years and suckle for half that time. She adds this makes the rehabilitation process a challenge because they have to meet those needs that the mother usually provides.
A calming cup of tea has brewed up a storm in Pakistan. Things started to boil when a Pakistani minister urged his countrymen to cut back on drinking tea, which is locally known as chai. Pakistanis love their tea. The country is the world's biggest importer. The latest government figures show the country pays over $515 million a year to bring in the commodity, mostly from Kenya. The thinking behind cutting back on the favorite drink is to help the country's economy. Ahsan Iqbal, Minister for Planning and Development, appeals to the nation to cut down 1 or 2 cups because the tea the nation imports is being imported on credit. The country is suffering a long-brewing economic crisis with dwindling foreign reserves used to pay crippling debt.
Qatar has launched the official poster for the 2022 World Cup. The series of posters is composed of several black and white images and Arabic typography designed by Qatari artist Buthaina Al-Mufta. The artist says she wanted to appeal to both global and local communities and portray the collective cheer echoed in a stadium.
It's inspired from the cheer and the echoing in the stadiums, the collective cheer. The typography is inspired from that, and the flick of the letra in the air is also a way of expressing, expressing that and celebrating a win. So these were all elements that I wanted to use in a subtle way.
Mufta is the first woman to design an official poster for the World Cup.
I cannot explain or justify my actions. I have no excuse, said Ryan Grantham, a former child actor who allegedly had plans to kill Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The Riverdale actor also pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in the death of his mother, Barbara Waite. In a statement to the police, Grantham said he shot his 64-year-old mother, Barbara Waite, at the back of the head as she played piano in March of 2020. He loaded his car the next day with 3 guns, ammunition, a dozen cocktails, camping supplies, and directions to Trudeau's family home to kill the Prime Minister. However, Grantham added he never made it to Trudeau's residence and instead went to Vancouver Police Headquarters to turn himself in. Second-degree murder in Canada carries a mandatory life sentence, and the period of parole ineligibility ranges from 10 to 25 years. Let's end our news today with some of history's greatest events that happened on June 16. In 1963, Valentina Tereshkova became the first and youngest woman to travel in space, having flown on the Vostok 6 mission. The Russian cosmonaut was also an engineer. In 1980, the Commission on Filipinos Overseas was established under the Office of the President of the Philippines through Batas Pambansa Bilang 79. This agency is responsible for promoting and upholding the interests of Filipino immigrants and Filipino permanent residents in other countries. And it was in 2021 when Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Joe Biden met in Geneva summit. It was one of the most highly anticipated political events of that year, and their historic meeting lasted for almost 4 hours.
And as usual, before we end tonight's broadcast, here is a quote, and this time from American poet Maya Angelou. Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. Remember that.
It takes longer for some, though.
I know it does. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.